May 24, 2024, News Report 1. On May 24, the Taiwan Legislative Yuan continued to review the parliamentary reform bill, with about 100,000 Taiwanese people gathered around the Legislative Yuan to protest. Protesters filled the surrounding roads, and panoramic photos taken from above showed the area around the Legislative Yuan packed with people. The bill's provisions, if passed, require that investigative committees hire lawyers or relevant professionals to attend meetings before publicizing investigation reports, and must obtain the chairman's approval. All members and staff must keep investigation details confidential before the report is made public. Holding a public hearing requires the consent of 2/3 of the members, and if it involves national defense and diplomatic secrets, it will not be made public. Democratic Progressive Party legislators criticized the requirement to seek the chairman's approval to hire a lawyer as an insult to the Taiwanese people. The Legislative Yuan meeting will continue until midnight, with the next meeting scheduled for May 28. Civilian groups in Taiwan called on people to protest at the Legislative Yuan on the morning of May 24, demanding that the Kuomintang withdraw the legislation for the Legislative Yuan to review clause by clause. As of 9:30 p.m., about 100,000 people had gathered around the Legislative Yuan. Despite the next day being Saturday, people continued to arrive at the protest site. Protesters chanted slogans, demanding the cancellation of the parliamentary reform bill, emphasizing that without discussion there is no democracy, and accusing the parliament of abusing its power. Similar protests were held in various parts of Taiwan, with about 500 people participating in Taichung train station and over 10,000 in Kaohsiung. After the protests, many participants went directly to Taipei to join the protest in front of the Legislative Yuan. Of note, a group of young people from Hualien specially traveled to Taipei to protest against the Kuomintang's caucus leader in the Legislative Yuan, Fu Kuan-chi, from Hualien. These young people apologized to the audience and said they could not let Fu Kuan-chi speak for Hualien. That evening, Wikipedia referred to this anti-legislative Yuan empowerment movement as the Clear Bird Action and detailed its progress since May 17. On Facebook, Clear Bird Action became the most popular keyword in Taiwan, but its specific meaning is not clear. Some Facebook users said, Clear Bird represents celebrating and guarding, believing that they should seek happiness and freedom themselves. Another explanation is that the protests mainly occurred outside the Legislative Yuan on Qingdao East Road, hence the name, Qingmiao Action, but this is slightly different from the Clear Bird Action narrative. News Report 2. According to Politico, on May 23, the EU Council proposed that EU member states establish specialized agencies in universities to combat Chinese academic espionage. The proposal includes 14 recommendations, including, first, all universities, research organizations, or institutions establish contacts with national security departments. Second, appoint full-time liaison officers to assist universities in combating foreign theft of research results. Third, hold regular briefing meetings. And fourth, conduct simulation tests and resilience tests for possible technical leaks. Europe is increasingly concerned about research cooperation between universities and China. EU Research Director Ivanova said in January that technical leaks are an emerging risk, and the EU can no longer be complacent. The EU Commission proposed this law in January, and after less than 4 months of deliberation, EU member states have signed their support. The European Research Universities Alliance expressed support for closer cooperation between universities and intelligence agencies to understand the risks of scientific research with foreign entities. Some universities have begun to liaise with their respective countries' intelligence agencies, such as the University of Leuven in Belgium, whose president, Sells, said the school has had very frequent consultations with the Security Department. News Report 3. Voice of America reported that the U.S. House of Representatives Special Committee on Strategic Competition with the Chinese Communist Party held a roundtable meeting on May 23, with Hong Kong activists attending and calling for the closure of the 3 Hong Kong economic and trade offices in Washington, San Francisco, and New York to avoid becoming overseas intelligence agencies of the Chinese government. Participants included Hong Kong Free Fund Committee Policy Director Su Yingting, Hong Kong activist Xiao Lan, and one of media founder Jimmy Lai's defense lawyers, Price. Committee Chairman Mueller said the United States cares about Hong Kong because Hong Kong's freedom and autonomy are suppressed by the Chinese government, threatening core American values. The Hong Kong Financial Times is called a propaganda machine for the Chinese Communist Party, and the Hong Kong government monitors and tracks Hong Kong activists and American citizens. Su Yunting said that if Hong Kong is no longer different from other cities in China, the Chinese Communist Party should not have 2 diplomatic representative offices in the United States. The Hong Kong Trade and Economic Office Certification Act requires the U.S. government to certify the Hong Kong Trade and Economic Office within 30 days. If the certification fails, the Hong Kong Trade and Economic Office will cease operations within 180 days. The bill has been passed by the Foreign Affairs Committees of both the Senate and the House of Representatives, but a specific vote date has not been set. News Report 4. According to reports, Yuan Songbiao, the administrative manager of the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in London, appeared in court for the second time at the Central Criminal Court in England on May 24. The British police charged Yuan Songbiao, Private Detective Patrick, and Heathrow Airport border personnel Wei Zhiliang with assisting the Hong Kong Intelligence Department in collecting intelligence in the UK from December last year to May this year, monitoring and defrauding Hong Kong activists, and attempting to forcibly enter their homes. One of the defendants, Patrick, has had his prosecution terminated, while Yuan Songbiao and Wei Zhiliang have been granted bail. At the court, Huang Kailing, Deputy Director of the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in London, and Huan Kwang, Assistant Director, attended as observers. When Yuan Songbiao left the court, he was chased by reporters asking about Patrick's death and his relationship with Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam, but Yuan Songbiao did not respond. The case is scheduled to go to trial in February next year, with the trial date set for February 10. News Report 5. According to data released by the UK Home Office on May 23, the UK approved 10,737 BNO visas for Hong Kong residents in the first quarter of this year, a decrease of 1,556 compared to the same period last year, but an increase of 4,276 compared to the previous quarter. The number of BNO visas approved in the first quarter of this year is equivalent to 28% of the total for last year. Since 2021, the UK Home Office has approved a total of 201,000 BNO visas, of which 144,000 Hong Kong residents have arrived in the UK, meaning they will settle in the UK. BNO visas, short for British National, Overseas, visas for Hong Kong residents, come in 2 types, 2.5-year visas and 5-year visas. The earliest to be approved were the 2.5-year visas, which are now expiring and require extension applications. The main difference between the 2.5-year and 5-year visas is the visa fees and medical insurance costs. As of the first quarter of this year, 36,000 extension applications have been approved. News Report 6. The Central District Court of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, ruled on May 24 that Daniel Duggan, a retired American pilot who trained the People's Liberation Army, PLA, can be extradited to the United States for trial. The U.S. prosecutors indicted Duggan in 2017, accusing him of providing military training to the PLA 3 times between 2010 and 2012, including training pilots to take off and land on aircraft carriers, in violation of U.S. arms control laws. The indictment stated that Duggan provided military training to China without the consent of the U.S. government. The U.S. State Department notified him that foreign Air Force personnel must obtain official U.S. approval and these individuals would not be allowed to go to the U.S. Duggan, 55, served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 12 years. He moved to Australia in 2002 and became an Australian citizen in 2012. In 2014, Duggan moved to Beijing and lived there until 2022 when he returned to Australia. Australian police arrested Duggan in 2014 at the request of the U.S. News Report 7. According to Reuters, China recently announced the implementation of the Coast Guard law, which explicitly allows Chinese Coast Guard ships to fire on foreign vessels that violate regulations. Under the Coast Guard law, Chinese Coast Guard ships can fire on foreign vessels that violate regulations in Chinese waters and can arrest intruders without approval. The China Coast Guard Administration announced last week that the administrative enforcement procedures of the Coast Guard Agency will be implemented from June 15, resolving the issue of the implementation of the Coast Guard law. China's Coast Guard can arrest people and use firearms in the South China Sea. The Coast Guard law passed by China in 2021 stipulates that if foreign ships enter Chinese waters or illegally engage in production operations without obeying orders to stop or refusing Chinese Coast Guard boarding inspections, Coast Guard personnel can use weapons after warnings are ineffective. Philippine Defense Minister Teodoro said in a speech at the Philippine Navy's anniversary that the actions of the Chinese government allowing Chinese Coast Guard ships to act in the South China Sea are provocative and violate the principles of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and the UN Charter. Admiral Aquilino, former commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, said in a House Armed Services Committee hearing in March this year that if Filipino sailors or soldiers die in the conflict, the Philippines can invoke the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. News Report 8. According to the Iranian state news agency, the Iranian military has issued a preliminary report on the crash of President Raisi, concluding that the crash was an accident, not an assassination. The report stated that the helicopter carrying Raisi crashed in East Azerbaijan province, Iran, on May 19, killing all 9 people on board. The investigation report shows that the pilot of the crashed helicopter was in contact with the pilots of the other 2 helicopters shortly before the accident, and the helicopter had been flying along the planned route without deviation. There were no suspicious elements found in the conversation between the tower and the crew. The report also pointed out that the helicopter crashed and caught fire at high altitude, but no bullet marks or other traces were found in the wreckage, which would typically be left if it was hit. News Report 9. International rating agencies announced on May 24 that they have downgraded bank's long-term foreign and local currency issuer default ratings from BB+ to BB-, with a negative outlook. At the same time, Bank Real Estate's long-term issuer default rating was downgraded from BB to B+, with a negative outlook. This means that Bank's debt risk rating has further declined. The rating agency stated that the reason for the downgrade is that Bank has become increasingly reliant on cash on hand, asset disposals, and domestic bank financing to repay debts. In addition, the Housing and Construction Bureau of Zhuhai, Guangdong Province, announced on May 24 the complete cancellation of restrictions on purchase and sale documents, proposing 6 measures to promote the development of the real estate market, including no longer reviewing the qualifications of home buyers, canceling the term limits for the transfer of commercial housing, and raising the maximum limit for Housing Provident Fund loans for dual-employee families to 1 million yuan, aimed at promoting the vitality of the real estate market. Furthermore, the Chinese Ministry of Finance announced on May 24 the second batch of bids for ultra-long-term special treasury bonds, with a face value of 40 billion yuan and a term of 20 years, with an interest rate of 2.49%. These special treasury bonds are issued to support the country's infrastructure construction and economic development. News Report 10. The Intermediate People's Court of Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province, announced the first-instance verdict of the bribery case involving Chao Guangjing, the vice-governor of Hubei Province, on May 24. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. According to reports, Chao Guangjing accepted bribes totaling 210 million yuan, providing assistance in personal business and project contracting between 2004 and 2022, abusing his official position, and receiving substantial bribes. Additionally, Chao Guangjing was accused of leading the restructuring of a company while serving as vice-governor of Hubei province, disclosing relevant information to others for personal gain, and allegedly manipulating stock prices. News Report 11. A stabbing incident in Shaocheng County, Shaogan City, Hubei Province, has drawn public attention. According to reports, a 53-year-old man went on a stabbing spree on May 23, resulting in the deaths of 8 people and injuring 1. The man, in a sudden frenzy, attacked family members and other villagers on that morning, killing a family of 3, including a child. Eventually, 2 young villagers subdued the man, rendering him unconscious. It was mentioned in the report that the assailant had a history of mental illness, and his mental state had been abnormal in the past 2 days. This incident sparked widespread discussions online, but the Chinese government's measures to block information resulted in some netizens being banned after expressing related opinions. News Report 12. According to Kyodo News, data released by Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare on May 24 showed that the employment rate of recent graduates from Japanese universities reached 98.1% as of April 1, an increase of 0.8 percentage points compared to the previous year. The data also indicated a 0.1 percentage point increase compared to March 2020. The Kanto region, including Tokyo, had the highest employment rate at 99.6% among the 4 regions. Officials from Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare stated that there is a labor shortage in Japan, and companies are actively recruiting recent graduates, making the current employment situation relatively easy. Students can choose jobs that suit them. In contrast, in China, employment prospects for university graduates have become increasingly difficult after the pandemic. Many graduates either return to their hometowns or opt for flexible employment. For example, a 23-year-old woman from Zhejiang recently posted that she had been unable to find a job since graduating from the accounting department of a university a year ago. She was surprised to find that several roommates in her dormitory were also facing unemployment. In July last year, Zhang Dandan, a lecturer at Peking University, wrote that the youth unemployment rate in China reached 46.5% in March last year. However, the unemployment data released by the National Bureau of Statistics was accused of being fabricated and unable to reflect the actual employment situation of Chinese university graduates. Therefore, this year's employment situation has once again become a focus. It is now May, the graduation season, and university graduates are once again facing the challenge of finding employment. News Report 13. Reuters reported that the Russian Federal Anti-Spying Department recently launched an anti-corruption operation, arresting Lieutenant General Vishalaman, Deputy Chief of the General Staff of the Army, and Vladimir Verlitsky, an official from the Ministry of Defense. The number of senior officials from the military and defense sectors arrested in Russia has increased to 5 within a month. Vishalaman was accused of receiving bribes from a factory in Palm City for many years and receiving kickbacks from government contracts. Vladimir Verlitsky, an official from the Ministry of Defense, was accused of fraudulently using government tenders and defense orders and receiving bribes from companies. Since April 23, the Russian Federal Anti-Spying Department has arrested 5 senior officials from the Ministry of Defense and the military, including Deputy Minister of Defense Ivanov, Personnel Director of the Ministry of Defense Kuznetsov, and former commander of the 58th Army Popov. In addition, Major General Akhmatov, the commander of the 20th Army, was dismissed, although there was no official announcement before. Akhmatov had ordered soldiers from the 144th Division of the 20th Army to gather and listen to his speech during the fighting in Luhansk, Ukraine, in June last year. They were subsequently discovered and attacked by Ukrainian drones, resulting in a tragedy with 100 deaths and 100 injuries. This anti-corruption operation within the Russian military demonstrates the existence of corruption within the ranks, a characteristic shared by many authoritarian regimes. This operation may have political implications.